Hi guys, it's Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner, and welcome back to another card hoppin' video hops in our series. This one is for September, where we were asked to case ourselves. If you don't know what case is, that's copy and share everything. Also, we're using watercolors or markers. So what I'm doing is I'm casing a card that I made using some Spellbinders glimmer plates and stamps and some Jane Davenport watercolors, and I'm gonna kind of do this a little bit loosely. Instead of doing flowers, I'm doing some pumpkins, partially because it is fall. It is September, although here in Florida it is still in the upper 80s, lower 90s, so it is hot. But I still thought I'd do a nice, pretty themed fall card here. What I've got is some, and it looks like I messed up my my screen a little bit there, so sorry about that. But what I'm doing is I am stamping and embossing some stamps that I have from Spellbinders. This is from the Charming Pumpkins stamp set. You probably saw this on another one of my videos recently, but I'm using those, and I'm stamping with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink onto a watercolor panel that I'm heat embossing, and then I'm going to go from there and watercolor it. I love embossing over black ink, and this is the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. It stays a little wet a little bit longer than, say, the Memento Tuxedo Black, plus it's a lot darker. But I love doing that embossed edge over the top of it and clear. It looks like you did black embossing, but it doesn't get those little black specks all over the place, in case you didn't, like I didn't use your embossing tool. It was okay this time because I'm using Wow clear embossing powder, but it's a good idea to use your embossing buddy or anti-static tool, whichever one you're wanting to do. The reason I'm doing embossing is because I'm going to watercolor these using my Jane Davenport watercolors, and I want to try to stay inside those little lines. Now, I am not a watercolor expert in any fashion, but I am learning the more that I practice. So to start off with, I am taping my little sliver of a panel down. This is watercolor paper that I basically had a couple of panels off to the side, so I trimmed this down to about the size I think I'm going to want, and I'm taping that down with some purple tape. I'm trying to leave as small of a margin around the edge as I can, because I want to use up as much of this panel as I can on this card. To start off with, I'm going to go ahead and just test out one of the colors to see if I can get the right color for the background. And this I'm just going to do on a separate panel. I mean, it's a separate sheet of watercolor paper, and I'll be able to use that one for another card later on. I added some clear water around all of the background areas. That's everything except for the pumpkins. And then I'm adding that, I don't know, kind of a peachish skin tone all around through there, and trying to get it to kind of be a watercolor wash using that excess water. Like I said, I'm not good at this, so I'm experimenting and learning. Then I decided, you know, I'm going to go ahead and go over the stems of the pumpkins, because I want to try to get a brownish green color. And that's a little difficult with the colors in this palette. I tried that before and had a lot of trouble getting a green out. So now I'm going to try to mix a green using some blues and some of the yellows that aren't quite yellow. They've got a little bit of red mixed in, so those don't necessarily turn out the right color. But with enough mixing and enough layering, this is going to turn out okay for the purpose of this card. So I colored those stems in, and it is kind of a grayish brown, and then I added another one of the colors in, and it brought it up to a little bit of a brighter brown, but it's got too much water down, so I'm going to have to mop some of that up and just continue to layer. Now, the pumpkins were a bit easier to do because I do have a couple of different oranges in there. I'm starting off with this lightish one. I know that they've got color names. I don't recall what they are, and to be honest, I don't know what I did with my swatch either. So I'm kind of just starting off at the bottom, putting the heaviest color at the bottom of the pumpkins and around the edges of each of those I don't know, the indentations that pumpkins have to try to give it a little bit of depth. And then I'm mixing more water in to kind of blend those out. I also have a paper towel handy so that I can kind of mop up a little bit of that color, you know, to take a little bit of the color off in the center of my pumpkins. So I let the colors dry back, all of that paint that I just added on there, and it did turn this really nice, pretty shade of light orange. But of course, I decided I wanted to go in and add a little more definition, so I'm adding a darker orange on there, and then I'm trying to blend that out as well. Again, I've got my paper towel handy to mop up some of that excess color because I don't really want the center to be that dark. After finishing up that second layer of orange on the pumpkins, I decided, you know, I think I want the background a little bit darker too. So I'm bringing in some clean water onto that background and adding some more of that peachish color in there as well. I am actually going to add quite a bit of water and try to let it flow down the page, trying to get a good watercolor wash. Like I said, I am not an expert, and this is practice time, so you always get better with a little bit of practice, and these are turning out super cute so far. But I'm going to go ahead and just tilt the page a little bit and then help some of that color drift down and fill in all of those gaps. So next I'm going to just set this off to the side to dry and work on my sentiment. A couple of the nice sentiments that are in this stamp set are Happy Thanksgiving, Grateful for You, and Fall Blessings. I decided to go with the Grateful for You. In the previous card, my inspiration piece, I've got this nice size sentiment that goes down this panel off to the right. Well, I don't really have enough space to be able to do it wide like that, so I'm doing it instead horizontally on that piece. So I go ahead and stamp that out using that same Versified Onyx black ink, and I'm going to heat emboss the sentiment on here too. Okay, so I got impatient. I decided to go ahead and work on the inside of the card instead of trying to sit and watch paint dry. So I stamped one of those little pumpkins on an A2 size card panel in white card panel, black ink, so that I can put that on the inside of my orange card base when I get everything finished up. Of course, I decided to go ahead and get this one placed inside it first because, again, I'm waiting for the paint to dry. Okay, so my watercolor panel is dry, or mostly. Now this really didn't take that long, and it didn't take that long to dry either. I'm just impatient because I wanted to be doing something. I wanted to be working on the card. So I'm going ahead and taking all of that purple tape off so that I can decide, you know, how exactly I want to cut this down so it's going to fit on the front of my card. The watercolor panel is larger, of course, than what I need. So I started off by just trimming off the white space. And it's still too large, too tall rather, so I'm trimming off some from the bottom and a little bit from the top, and it's going to fit just right on my card. And then I trimmed the sentiment piece down as well so that there would be a slight gap between the two panels on the front of the card. This, for both of these, I'm going to pop those up on some foam tape. Then, as a final touch, I grabbed out some yellow gems and I added those to the front of my card. Thanks again for joining me for another Card Hoppin' video from the Card Hoppin' video series. This hop is brought to you by the Facebook group Handmade Happiness, and every month we're making something else to kind of stretch our creativity a little bit. If you like this video, be sure to smash that like button, consider subscribing, and check out all of the other videos on the hop because I know they'll have a lot of inspirational projects for you to see. Here's another video that I know you'll enjoy. Have a wonderful day, and remember, if I can make it, you can too.